Damien was born in 1975 in Northampton and first clashed with the law as a teenager. By age 15 he was already in trouble, and between 1991 and 2002 he racked up convictions for 6 separate robberies. These were not elaborate criminal enterprises but raw, opportunistic stick-ups with a bladed article, driven by the desperate need to feed his candy habit. Each conviction marked another failure of the system to curb a young man whose life had become a revolving door of addiction, debt, and unsafe behavior. The tipping point came in September 2002. Over a frantic 4-day period, 27-year-old Damien carried out 3 robberies with a blade. At least one of the robberies involved breaking into a family home and threatening the occupants with a bladed article, a home invasion that left ordinary people traumatized in their own living room. The others followed the same ruthless pattern. Damien would confront victims, shopkeepers, passers-by, or householders, with a blade, demand money or goods, and then vanish into the night. These were not sophisticated heists, they were frenzied, terrifying acts born of desperation. Still, the cumulative terror they inflicted on the local community in and around Northampton was enough to push the courts to their limit. Police quickly linked the crimes through witness descriptions of the same heavily tattooed, scarred man wielding a blade. Damien was arrested, charged, and brought before Northampton Crown Court. The prosecution painted a picture of a dangerous repeat offender, whose offending had escalated in both frequency and recklessness. No details could be found about the actual charges against him or trial, but public records show the judge handed down a discretionary life sentence, with a minimum term of 5 years and 220 days before parole could even be considered. A judge will impose this type of sentence only when satisfied that the offense is very serious, and the offender poses a significant and ongoing danger to the public that cannot be reliably managed by a fixed-term sentence. Once imposed, the sentence lasts for the rest of the offender's life. If released, which is not guaranteed, the person remains on license for life and can be recalled to prison at any time for breaching conditions or committing further offenses. Damien was shipped off to high-security prisons to begin serving his term. At first, his time behind bars passed with relative quiet. But by 2006 something darker took hold. Damien began displaying worrying behavioral symptoms. Between 2006 and 2010 he was involved in no fewer than 27 separate incidents of self-harm. He developed a seething hatred for SA offenders and child unalivers. That hatred would soon explode into 2 of the most infamous attacks in modern British prison history. Housed in the same prison was Ian Huntley, an inmate who was serving a life sentence for the unaliving of 2 children, Holly and Jessica. Damien saw him working as a cleaner in the healthcare wing of HMP Frankland in County Durham. Upon seeing him, Damien asked to speak to a listener, a prisoner trained to support others in crisis. Instead of visiting the listener, he walked straight up to Huntley with a homemade weapon, and without warning, he inflicted a 7-inch wound to his neck. Damien chased Huntley down the corridor, inflicting at least 2 more blows, with one to the chest. Huntley, fighting for his life, barricaded himself inside the servery while officers rushed in. They finally wrestled the weapon from Damien's grip and found he was carrying a second sharp implement. When officers told him Huntley was alive, Damien snarled, saying, "I wish I had unalived him." In the time that followed he openly admitted he had planned the attack for days, choosing the healthcare wing because he had spotted Huntley there the previous week. "They just do my head in," he later said of child unalivers. Huntley needed 21 stitches and 3 days in hospital. Only sheer luck had prevented the blade from severing anything vital. Damien was charged in November 2010. By then he had been transferred to HMP Full Sutton near York, another maximum security prison. Full Sutton's D wing houses what the authorities call vulnerable prisoners, including Colin Hatch, a 58-year-old child unaliver, serving a life sentence. On a Tuesday evening in February 2011, Damien walked into a cell where Hatch was visiting another inmate. He ordered the third man out, then barricaded the door with a bed and locker. Armed with a sharpened piece of plastic, Damien threatened Hatch and shouted through the door to officers outside, saying he would unalive Hatch if they tried to enter. He then blocked the observation hatch so no one could see inside, and with cold precision he used bed sheets to constrict Hatch's airway. Officers outside heard him shouting obscenities that I cannot repeat here. When they finally forced their way in, Hatch had passed away. Damien stood still, seemingly accepting his fate. His own cell had been left immaculate, with his possessions neatly stacked, as if he knew exactly where he was going next. The segregation unit. Humberside police were called within minutes. Damien was arrested that same night and charged the next day. At Hull Crown Court on the 4th of October 2011, Damien, then 36, pleaded guilty to the attempted unaliving of Ian Huntley and to the manslaughter of Colin Hatch on the grounds of diminished responsibility. 3 psychiatrists and 2 psychologists had assessed him. All agreed he showed strong psychopathic traits and a deep-seated disorder of great severity. The next day, Mr. Justice Coulson sentenced him to a second life term. He told Damien he was a dangerous offender, and a hospital order was impossible because of the risk he posed to others. A whole life order was not justified, but only a life sentence would protect the public. The judge fixed the minimum term at 20 years before Damien could even be considered for release. Coulson was blunt about the prison system. Attacks of this gravity inside high-security jails were unacceptable. He called for an urgent review of management and security procedures. Yet he stressed that the notoriety of the victims changed nothing. The fact that they were themselves notorious criminals is irrelevant to the sentence I must pass. It is a matter of common sense and of law. Damien remained a lifer, moving between high-security prisons. His hatred of certain inmates did not fade. On the 2nd of October 2016, at HMP Whitemoor in Cambridgeshire, another inmate, Kevin McCarthy, grabbed Damien from behind during lunch preparation and inflicted a 12-inch wound on his neck. It was life-threatening and Damien was rushed to hospital. McCarthy later pleaded guilty to attempted unaliving and received another life sentence. Whilst Fowkes survived, the attack underscored a brutal irony. The man who had once hunted child unalivers with homemade weapons had himself become a target in the same predatory prison ecosystem. As of 2026, Damien Fowkes remains incarcerated, serving concurrent life sentences. The substance-addicted street robber, who terrorized Northampton over 4 desperate days in 2002, has become a permanent fixture in Britain's most secure prisons, a man whose own unsafe behavior has ensured he will almost certainly pass away behind bars. His story is one of unrelenting escalation, from 6 earlier robberies, to a 4-day bladed article spree that earned him a life term, to 2 of the most shocking prison attacks in modern British penal history. If you'd like to know why Kevin McCarthy, Colin Hatch, and Ian Huntley were imprisoned, please check out my other videos.